Breaking news hit early this morning. US surveillance flights surge over the Caribbean as tension with Venezuela rises fast. And right now at 5:42 a.m., that tension is no longer just a headline. A US reconnaissance plane moves low over the water, scanning every road, every heat signal, every strange movement on the ground. Inside a quiet intelligence room, analysts watch the live feed as a convoy leaves a restricted compound outside Caracas. The cars move fast and tight, not random, not routine. For weeks, Mossad and the CIA have been tracking escape routes tied to Nicolás Maduro. But this pattern is different. It looks like someone inside the regime is preparing to move, maybe even him. The room grows tense as the convoy gains speed. This is the first real shift in days, and everyone knows what it could mean. The pressure is rising, and something is about to break. If you want to follow this moment by moment, hit subscribe and stay with us. This is not just another morning in the Caribbean. What we are watching now comes after weeks of strange activity across Venezuela. Convoys have changed routes, guards have switched shifts without warning, and secure compounds have tightened access. To most people, these details look small, but to intelligence teams, they mean one thing. Someone important feels pressure, and someone important may try to run. The area north of Venezuela is one of the most watched regions in the Western Hemisphere. US radar covers the coastline, partner nations track the airspace, and satellites pass over several times a day. That is why the sudden movement of this convoy matters so much. It did not match any known routine. It did not follow the paths used for supply runs or official travel. It moved like a group protecting a high-value target. For Mossad, this operation is about finding patterns. They have spent weeks building a full picture of how Maduro's circle moves. The roads they choose, the stops they make, the guards they trust. Their work is slow, detailed, and quiet. But once a pattern breaks, everything speeds up. For the CIA, the stakes go beyond one man. An unexpected move from Maduro could shake the entire region. It could push allies to panic, shift cartel routes, or spark new waves of people trying to leave the country. Every wrong turn, every rushed decision in Caracas can affect families and borders all across the Americas. And for us planners, this morning is a test. If Maduro heads toward an airstrip, a tunnel, or a safe house, they need to know before he gets there. Once he is inside a protected zone, tracking becomes harder and the window to act becomes smaller. This live movement shows something the agencies have waited for, a sign that the pressure campaign is working. Something inside the regime is shifting. Someone is reacting. And if this convoy leads to the right person, the next hours may reveal more than the last month combined. At 5:43 a.m., the convoy made a sharp move. The lead SUV jumped forward, dust rising behind it as two more vehicles fell into a tight formation. Inside the intelligence room, the US reconnaissance feed tightened while the plane adjusted to a lower angle, giving the team a clearer view of every turn and every shadow on the road. 3 digital boxes locked onto the moving SUVs. At that same moment, Mossad's encrypted line came alive. Their analysts had watched countless routes tied to Maduro's circle, and nothing about this movement looked routine. That speed and spacing are not normal, one Mossad analyst said, his eyes fixed on the screen. A CIA officer leaned forward. Where does that road lead? An airstrip, a tunnel route, or the safe house we flagged, an analyst replied. Everyone understood what that meant. Those 3 places were not random. They were escape points, fallback zones, or last-minute hiding areas used only when someone inside the regime felt real pressure. Mossad requested heat signatures. The overlay appeared. 5 people in the first SUV, 3 in the second. But the third vehicle was different. It carried reinforced plating, blackout windows, and a modified engine running hotter than normal. These were signs of a vehicle built to protect someone important and move fast if things went wrong. The convoy dipped under heavy tree cover, and the feed blurred for a few seconds. The room went silent. Then the vehicles broke into the open again faster, tighter, more focused than before. They know something, a tech whispered. Mossad shook their head. If they knew about us, they would scatter. This is controlled protection, not panic. Everyone watched as the third SUV shifted closer to the center of the formation. It was a move used only when the passenger was high value. Mossad recognized the pattern right away. That setup is used only for top-level movement, one said quietly. The tension in the room changed. What started as routine surveillance had become a live chase toward a known escape corridor. If the convoy reached the ridge, the terrain would make tracking harder, maybe impossible. "Keep all three in frame," the officer in charge said. Every turn now felt like a message. Someone high inside the regime was moving, trying to reach safety before the net tightened around them. If you believe this convoy is carrying someone critical, press 1. If you think it is a decoy meant to mislead us and Mossad, press 9. By 5:49 a.m., the convoy reached a junction where 3 roads split. One went to a restricted airstrip, one toward a political compound, and one deep into the mountains. Everyone in the intelligence room focused as the lead SUV slowed for a moment, then turned onto the mountain road. It was the most protected and secret route, used only when someone needed to move without being noticed. In operations like this, direction is everything, a CIA officer said. One turn can change the whole mission. Mossad recognized the route immediately. They had mapped it for weeks, and several past escape attempts used this same road when the regime felt unstable. That is a fallback corridor, a Mossad analyst said. They use it only when something is wrong inside. The US reconnaissance plane banked to follow. The steep ridges caused the feed to cut for a moment, then return, showing the SUVs climbing in a tight formation. The armored third vehicle moved to the center, a classic protection move for a high-value passenger. "Run a prediction," the CIA officer said. Mossad replied. At this speed, they reached the mountain safe house in under 20 minutes. That safe house was a real problem. It had tunnels, decoy exits, and reinforced walls. If the convoy reached it, tracking would become much harder and the chance to confirm the target could shrink fast. The plane adjusted again, catching a reflection off the armored SUV. Mossad flagged it instantly. The plating matched vehicles used only by Maduro's top circle. "That is not mid-level transport," one analyst said quietly. The tension rose. Every turn now felt like a countdown. The mountain path was narrow and full of blind spots. Once the convoy passed a certain ridge, surveillance would become unstable. Inside the room, nobody looked away from the screen. Each change in pace or spacing felt like another clue. Someone inside the regime was moving with purpose, trying to reach cover before the net closed. If you believe this turn toward the mountains shows a real escape attempt, press 1. If you think it is meant to mislead us and Mossad, press 9. About 10 minutes into the mountain climb, the convoy changed behavior again. The lead SUV slowed without warning, forcing the others to adjust. For a moment, the entire formation tightened so much that analysts thought the vehicles were preparing for a stop. But then, something unexpected happened. A fourth SUV appeared from a narrow side road, older and unmarked, moving straight into the convoy's path as if it had been waiting there. The CIA officer leaned forward. "Where did that come from?" Mossad answered quickly. "This is a misdirection move. They want us to follow the wrong vehicle." In past operations across the Middle East, Mossad had seen this trick many times. A decoy car appears at the right moment, trying to draw the attention of surveillance teams and break their focus on the real target. The goal is simple: confuse, divide, and hide. But something about this decoy felt wrong. Mossad checked the heat signature. The engine temperature was low, far too low for a car that had supposedly been driving long enough to meet the convoy. The timing was too perfect, the engine too cool, the paint too clean. "They planted it," a Mossad analyst said. "It was waiting there to be seen." The decoy SUV turned onto the road ahead and sped up slightly, making itself look like the most important piece of the convoy. In many operations, tracking teams fall for this move because they don't want to risk losing a potential target. But Mossad and the CIA were ready for this. The US reconnaissance plane shifted to a higher angle, keeping both the real convoy and the decoy in view. There would be no split focus today. "They don't know we can see everything from above," a Mossad specialist said. The real three-car formation reacted differently. Instead of slowing, they spread out slightly and accelerated again. The armored SUV fell back into the center. The formation tightened. This was the behavior of a group protecting someone important, not a group trying to fake a rout. This confirms something, the CIA officer said. The decoy isn't the priority. The real payload is still in those three vehicles. The tension inside the intelligence room grew heavier. This twist didn't weaken the operation, it strengthened it. The decoy, meant to confuse, instead revealed how much the regime feared being tracked. And fear usually means the target is close. If you think this failed decoy proves the convoy is protecting someone high level, press 1. If you think the regime still has another trick ready to mislead us and Mossad, press 9. The mountain road narrowed into a single lane carved along the ridge. The convoy tightened as it climbed, the armored SUV staying locked between the other two. The failed decoy had changed nothing. Whoever they were protecting was still inside that middle vehicle. The US reconnaissance plane dropped lower to clear the signal. The feed sharpened just as the lead SUV made a hard turn. The others followed, engines echoing through the canyon. "Hold this angle," the CIA officer said. Mossad analysts zoomed in. The passenger inside the armored SUV barely moved. That stillness was a clear sign of a high-value person being shielded. Then something changed. The lead SUV braked suddenly. Dust rose behind them. From a narrow cut in the rock, two hidden pickup trucks rolled out and blocked the road behind the convoy. "That's rear security," Mossad said. "They're sealing the route." Ahead, a metal gate built into the cliff began opening outward. The convoy slowed, approaching it. This was one of the suspected mountain entrances Mossad had flagged weeks earlier. The armored SUV crept toward the opening as the gate widened. For a moment, the infrared camera caught the outline of a seated figure in the back seat. Not a guard, someone being protected. "That's a VIP profile," a Mossad analyst said. The tension in the room rose sharply. This was the closest they had come to identifying the target. The vehicle crossed the threshold. Just before disappearing into the tunnel, a second figure leaned forward briefly, as if checking the outside world one last time. Then they vanished into darkness. A Mossad specialist broke the silence. "That wasn't random. That was someone confirming we were still watching." If you think the person in that SUV is the true target of this entire operation, press 1. If you believe it was another controlled distraction, press 9. When the armored SUV disappeared into the mountain tunnel, the chase ended. But the meaning of what happened grew even heavier. If the person inside belonged to Maduro's inner circle, the entire operation had entered a new phase. Movements like this only happen when a regime feels real pressure or senses a fracture forming inside its own ranks. The mountain safe house was not just a shelter. It was a controlled zone built to isolate one person, restrict communication, and reset internal power. Mossad had seen this pattern many times before in other countries. Leaders hide underground when fear shifts from the outside world to the people standing closest to them. Analysts replayed every second of the footage. The tight formation, the sudden rear security, and the controlled pace all pointed in the same direction. The convoy was protecting someone critical. The trucks that sealed the road were especially telling. They were not preparing for a foreign threat, they were preparing for someone inside the government to act against them. Across the region, the ripple began quickly. Border patrols tightened, radar networks increased sweep cycles, and allied intelligence teams asked for updates every few minutes. Even quiet political circles in neighboring countries reacted, sensing that a shift inside Venezuela could trigger consequences far beyond the tunnel's entrance. For Mossad and the CIA, the question was simple but urgent. Why now? Forced movement usually signals weakness, and weakness often leads to sudden decisions, resignations, disappearances, or even last-minute negotiations kept off the record. What happened next would reveal whether this was a temporary retreat or the start of something irreversible. The tunnel itself added uncertainty. It had multiple exits, each leading to different regions. The SUV could emerge close to the capital, near the border, or into a route designed years earlier for an emergency evacuation that almost nobody outside the inner circle knew existed. The final frame showed the gate closing behind the convoy, sealing the moment in silence. It felt less like an ending and more like a countdown. Now the world waits to see where the tunnel leads and who steps out when the next door opens.